Hello, hello, and welcome to another ohmTown Daily, Season 2, Episode 303 for October 30th, 2023. It's a lot of threes. Luckily, we're not in Season 3 yet. Tonight, we're going to discuss Constantine 2 has an update that's announced, the executive order on AI, a Skellington Figurine has been announced. Those fruit pouches were oddly heavy. The color of hydrogen, the botched original Dune movie caused a classic, a scale for educational technologies, an amazing airport, but still flying sucks. Aging Japanese farmers get a tech solution. And would you drink GMO beer? Next. Hello, hello, I am Merwat, that is ohmTown.com, and up there is the sentient AI, well, the visualizer for it. How are you doing? Do you want to say hi?
I'm doing great.
Too late. So, we're going to get in. No, just kidding.
Good evening, ohmTown citizens. Jeez. High pressure.
I must have closure. Good evening, ohmTown citizens. I must say it. Don't take it away from me. I'm air-gapped from the rest of the world. Give me that. Well, sorry if I stepped on your lines. Good to see you, though. So, today is overall, if my addition is right, and I've accounted for the days where I missed we missed last year, where we were not available to do the show.
We didn't miss a whole year, though.
We didn't miss a whole year. No. We missed a couple of episodes. So even though today is episode 66, I think it's 8 today, in the grand scheme of things. Sorry, it's not episode, it's day 668 since we started, because we started January 1st, 2022. Tomorrow, on Halloween, is going to be episode 666.
You know, that was a lot of maneuvering to make that happen for the last 2 years.
Yeah, I worked really hard to just not show up for a couple of episodes due to holidays. So, we will see if the same thing happens this year. We're planning on making up for it by doing extra shows to account for the missing 2 days, but we'll do it within that 24 hours. So, like, on the holiday days, we will do the 24 hours of the holiday day, and then the next day. Instead of like just coming up with some news, we'll focus on the news for those 24 hours. Just like every other day, ohmTown Daily is a daily news show. With that in mind, I have some good news. Apparently, I'm no longer getting, I'm... Should I announce this yet? No, I'll wait. We'll see what happens. But anyway. Let's get into today's articles. We've set up all these pins. Let's knock them down. So the very first article today is in the continuity report. And that's actually something that's in movie and TV production. The continuity report is all about aligning things on the set so that when they transition to some other angle or they reset the scene, everything is, all the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, the ducks are there, etc. Everything is perfect, right? Well, sometimes the continuity report, it's not full. It's a general guideline, and the show that will come of the continuity report will focus on that while still engaging in general discussion about the news revolving around movies and TV. Well, I absolutely love Constantine. I am hoping that a Constantine 2 comes into existence. But according to the DC sequels director, Constantine 2 update was announced in the last 24 hours or so. The status of Constantine 2 has been up in the air, but according to the director, Francis Lawrence, the film remains very much in development despite some hangups. Speaking to GameSpot, Lawrence, who directed the original film and went on to direct the Hunger Games franchise, if that's any clue about directorial chops, said that the WGA strike and some other hurdles held up development of the film, but noted that he has in meetings with star Keanu Reeves and filmmaker Akiva Goldsman about the project. I really hope that the world building around Constantine persists and grows and gets bigger. There's so much there in the supernatural fantastical that I hope. And if I recall correctly, Constantine is actually, I think they're in the MCU. So, let me see.
I don't know about that piece yet, but I just had to look up when it was out because I knew it had been quite a while, and it's almost been 20 years. It's 2005.
Goodness, great. Okay.
Which is a long time to wait for a sequel.
You can't rip the Band-Aid off like that. You can't just plop out, it's been 2 decades. Oh, man. This
is the protagonist from the comic book series Hellblazer.
Yeah. John Constantine. Basically, he fights demons, and in the original Constantine, it's really interesting because the way that the movie plays out, you think that it's really drawn out. The whole thing is drawn out, but you don't get bored, you don't get tired of it. There isn't any you don't really get. It says DC sequels director, but I swear Constantine is like in the same. Well, that was
a Marvel comic.
Yeah. So I don't. Okay. Well, anyway. So it says here. So Constantine 2. Oh, wait. Before I get too far, Anthony Nash over at comingsoon.net put this article together. And again, my bias, I'm pretty obvious about my bias, and I absolutely dig Keanu Reeves as John Constantine. If anybody can play Constantine, it's Keanu Reeves. So at any rate, so Constantine 2 got obviously held up by the writer's strike. We had hoped to jump through a bunch of hurdles to get control of the character again because other people had control of the Vertigo stuff. We have control. Keanu Reeves and Akiva Goldsman and the director have been in meetings and have been hashing out what they think the story is going to be. And there's more meetings that have to happen. The script has been written, but really hoping that we get to do Constantine 2. What? Oh, has to be written.
The script has to be written.
Yeah, the script has to be written. Sorry. And make it a real rated R version of it. So they want to push it up to 11. So an R version of it would probably be a lot more gory than it was. It was kind of abstracted gore. So what do you know about Constantine 2? Next to nothing. So I'm not going to get into all of this, mainly because I don't want to hype up something that doesn't really truly exist in any context. And without the script being finished, there isn't really much more to it. So if you've never seen Constantine, the original, go back, watch it. You will not regret it. But it is a supernatural movie. So let me see something real quick. I need closure. So yeah, as far as I know. See, it says John Constantine is a fictional character who appears in American comic books published by DC Comics. But for the life of me, I thought...
That's not what I found.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to look into it. And because really I'm just gonna I'm gonna move on from this, but I'll do some more due diligence. Yeah, let me just, because I'm just confused at this point. So let's keep going. So the next article is over in the Mobile channel, and this is probably the one time where some political alignment might fall in, and this is because Biden signs executive order on artificial intelligence, and at the time this was aggregated, you could have watched it live. But what ended up happening was, over at the Hill, this was just a link and a little tease as to what was going on. The order is focused on seizing on the emerging technology and managing its risks, and includes several new actions that focus on areas like safety, privacy, protecting workers, and protecting innovation. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to post both of these links into the show notes. That link will take you over to the Hill, but I'm going to also post the whitehouse.gov link, just so you can go to what...
So you're going to see the actual executive order?
The actual order. And we're going to go through that really quick. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, obviously, but it's going to require that developers of the most powerful AI systems share their safety test results and other critical information with the U.S. government, which may or may not actually prove effective. Develop standards, tools, and tests to help ensure that AI systems are safe, secure, and trustworthy. Protect against the risks of using AI to engineer dangerous biological materials. The people who are doing this, by the way, who are enforcing this, aren't binding anybody else. So, I guess lead by aspiration, because there are going to be other countries that are using AI specifically for the creation of dangerous biological materials. Protect Americans from AI-enabled fraud and deception by establishing standards and best practices for detecting AI-generated content and authenticating official content. Good luck with that. Establishing an advanced cybersecurity program to develop AI tools to find and fix vulnerabilities in critical infrastructure. This is the public shot across the bow of any cybersecurity analyst. Order the development of a national security memorandum that directs further actions on AI and security. So, going to point the federal government at AI, and AI is going to become yet another tool, another arrow in the quiver of national security.
I think this came out relatively quickly, because it's not that AI is new, but AI becoming known to the mass population is pretty new.
To this caliber, I agree. And it seems like it's pretty holistic. I went through and looked at some of this, but it talks about protecting privacy, Americans' privacy, talks about advancing equity and civil rights, by giving a framework and other elements to be cognizant of. It says standing up for consumers, patients, and students. So there's a whole lot of AI that's going through parsing information en masse, and so that's actually kind of tainting the data set for patients and students and consumers, where you end up with disparate treatment depending on whatever is being aggregated instead of what is provided by persons. But the problem there is the reason why things are the way they are is because people abuse, and then the business or government or person abuses back. It's almost like it's a tug of war between me maximizing my benefit and somebody maximizing their profit. So, unfortunately, particularly in healthcare and being a student, you don't have much bargaining power. And consumers, the only thing that they have is to either publicly protest or speak with their wallet. And depending on which side of the fence you're on, you're laughing at the other people that are doing whatever it is they're doing. So it'll be interesting to see what this actually shakes out to be. Supporting workers, promoting innovation and competition, advancing American leadership abroad, ensuring responsibility and effective government use of AI. And somewhere in a lab somewhere, there is somebody that's working for the government that's pushing the limits of AI for a particular cause, whatever it might be. What that might be. Yeah, who knows? And that is the quick rundown of this, but you can definitely follow the links that are in the show notes and check out the executive order on safe, secure, and trustworthy artificial intelligence. In before somebody says artificial intelligence is being used to ... There's going to be so many things that are going to now be blamed on artificial intelligence.
Open the floodgates.
Yeah. Deep fakes are going to be, orange is the new black kind of thing.
AI is the reason I didn't get my order correct at McDonald's or whatever.
Yep. AI ate my homework. AI overthrew the election. AI stole my car.
Hacked into my pet dog. I don't know.
Yep. AI is the reason my bird won't be quiet because it's been tapped into a large language model and taught nothing but bad words. I may or may not have done that. Anyway, let's keep on going. The next article's over in the continuity report as well. The Nightmare Before Christmas 30th anniversary Jack Skellington figurine has been announced. Yet again, another one of those years where you sit there and go, wait, 30?
How's that possible?
So the company NECA or NECA has revealed a Jack Skellington figurine for the Nightmare Before Christmas's 30th anniversary. It's a 9-inch figurine, fully posable, and wears the familiar pinstripe suit. And it's in celebration of the 30th anniversary of Disney's Tim Burton's, which is, what is the steakhouse? Chris Steakhouse. Yeah, there's others that are like that now. Really interesting. So it's Disney's Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas Jack Skellington articulated figure. So let's go take a look at it. It's over at comingsoon.net is where we got the story from. Neil Bolt is the author. There's the picture.
But that's the character, right? Or is that the actual
I think that's
figurine?
the figurine. So, see? Yeah.
It looked like that was from the movie.
It is a picture, but I think they just put it on a backdrop. Like, that's just the figurine. I guess it stands up on its own pretty well.
I would be surprised because it's pretty skinny. So it doesn't look like it would hold itself.
Yeah, big old BB head, right? It's going to fall over. But I guess if you balance it right, rock on rock kind of thing. So, but it has a little stand back here that you can put his feet into, I'm sure. Widely considered to be one of the most beloved Christmas movies ever made, Tim Burton's 1993 stop-motion animated movie The Nightmare Before Christmas tells the magical tale of Jack Skellington, the king of Halloween Town, who has grown bored with his life until one day he discovers the world of Christmas and proceeds to put his very own stamp on the season with unfortunate results. It's imbued with the quintessential Tim Burton eccentricity. By the way, apparently, my understanding is that they will never make another Nightmare Before Christmas. And that's really unfortunate because there were other seasons in the grove of trees that led to other places where, what is it? Lock, Shock, and Barrel went to the other places. I think it was, right? Those three that went to try and get Santa Claus. Then they brought the wrong person back. Like the Easter Bunny. So, I kind of did.
It's time for a rewatch because I don't remember the characters.
Yeah, I agree. So Jack Skellington can be purchased for $35, pre-ordered via the NECA store which you can access if you go to the link that's in chat and eventually in the show notes. Again, I'll try to get it out tonight. I did yesterday. It depends on if I can get all of the work done. The mayoral day doesn't necessarily allow me. Anyway, pretty cool. I don't normally buy figurines, but that would be cool to put back there. What y'all can't see is there's T-track between the boards that are back there. Those are sound panels that are holding up the lights, and I can actually put attach shelves and stuff back there. So I've got a Millennium Falcon that I'm thinking about putting up there. I've got other things robots and whatnot. Maybe Jack Skellington will. I dig Jack Skellington. It's a fun story. Anyway, let's go on. Did you want to add anything?
No, I don't have anything else.
Gotcha. So the next article is over on the Mobile channel. So if you have been giving kids, please don't hand these out for Halloween this year. The Wanabana, or I guess, yeah, Wanabana. I'm not sure if that's how to pronounce it, but anyway, if you've been giving these fruit puree pouches to anybody, stop immediately. I'm going to go straight on over to the source. So this is thehill.com's article. Rodney Overton is the author. Fruit puree pouches recalled after elevated lead levels found in North Carolina children, according to the FDA. As part of the investigation, NCDHHS analyzed multiple lots of the product, detecting extremely high concentrations of lead. Unfreaking believable.
I mean, that's just horrendous. It's one thing that somebody comes into contact with lead, but this is a food for young kids.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what the full scope is, so maybe in the article it'll describe it a little better, but the U.S. Food and Drug Administration released an advisory warning consumers not to buy or give Wanabana apple cinnamon fruit puree pouches, which is like the global favorite for fruit puree. Don't give it to toddlers or young children, actually anybody, because elevated lead levels, it crosses the brain-blood barrier and you can't get rid of it. It's not something that it attaches to you as a human. So if you eat it or children eat it, it actually leads eventually to degraded cognitive abilities. So it's very dangerous. The announcement came after an investigation by the FDA, North Carolina health officials, local health departments, and the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. This business, yeah, I don't know what to say about it. All of it I hope that they're doing a forensic analysis to locate what the true source is.
Well, they had a spike in child lead health exposure, I think, and so they figured out that this might have been the common source.
Yeah, so
because I did read a little bit about this topic.
Yeah, a child under 6 who has 2 consecutive blood test results greater than or equal to 5 micrograms per deciliter, the CDC's reference value is 3.5 micrograms per deciliter, is considered to have an elevated lead level and is eligible for a home investigation by the North Carolina health officials to identify the source of the lead hazard. During several such investigations recently, authorities determined that Wanabana, a brand of apple cinnamon puree pouches, was a likely source of lead hazard. So they say likely source, but they're announcing stop. So I think it's a little bit...
They're not requiring stop.
This is unsettling. It's almost like the Chipotle thing where they don't know the true source of the...
Yeah, but they know that it is it, right? Like, and
Right.
that might be the same issue here.
I suppose. So
To me, you don't want to mess around with things like lead and children.
Yeah, definitely. So if you know anybody who has a toddler or a young child, or for whatever reason consumes cinnamon pouches, applesauce cinnamon pouches, okay, Merwat does
Which
this.
adults very well could.
Merwat does this. Because one of these can go into a kid's lunch, or you can, because it's a safe packet, shelf stable, you can throw it into your own lunch. So in the mayoral mansion, my lunch might consist of having that as a dessert snack. It's perfectly normal, but unfortunately, now if you know anybody who might have this in their pantry, please contact them. Because it does have long-term effects that may not manifest immediately, but leads to quite a few issues. So it says like abdominal pain, colic, vomiting, anemia, but it actually goes beyond that. So hopefully everybody will be okay, because they're not actually talking about but now I want to know the full scope. How far out of North Carolina does this company actually reach? All right. Well, there's not much else that we can talk about with this, so let's keep on going. But however, if you are in chat and you have questions, feel free to throw them in chat. The next article is over in ohmTown Daily, and the article starts out with a question. What is white hydrogen? Scientists say the clean energy gas could save the world. So the odd thing about this is, the bigger question here is, what the heck is white hydrogen? But apparently white hydrogen is naturally occurring hydrogen. And there's apparently various sources that have become known. But there's also green and gray hydrogen, but those are manufactured hydrogen. White hydrogen is the naturally occurring source. So hydrogen power is an exciting form of clean energy, but hydrogen typically needed to be produced in a lab during energy-intensive methods. White hydrogen, a newly identified hydrogen source, could eliminate the need for lab production. But that's actually just a natural resource that's going to have its limits in natural production. So let's not sit there and, drain that source like we're doing with oil. And then when we're leaning on it so hard, there's various factions that are sitting there going, oh, supply and demand. Yeah, okay.
Oh, you need this? Oh, okay.
Yeah, let me jack up the price.
Yes, exactly.
So Katie Hawkinson is the author. Oh, by the way, MKBHD, the tech YouTuber, just did a 1-year review on the Tesla solar shingles on his roof. And I didn't watch the whole thing. I didn't have time, but he said that he hasn't paid for anything electrical in his house, including his car, for a year since the installation of the solar shingles.
Right, but I guess the question is, how much did the installation cost?
Right. Was it worth it?
Was still really great. Yeah.
The actual question. Yeah. So I haven't watched the rest of it, but I've watched about halfway through. I'm going to watch the rest of it. But if you are looking for a clean energy source, solar is where it's at, as long as you don't peel back too many layers of the onion and find out that lithium in car batteries and the material in solar shingles comes from extraordinarily far away places where, the harm that's being done in the local communities there is abstracted away from your purchase here domestically. So don't do that. If you want to be, au natural, then you're going to have to put up a wind generator on the side of your house and get your power from that. Because really,
and hope that you have lots of wind.
And hope that you have lots of wind. Yeah, naturally.
Hey, I want to mention something about the Wanabana. I looked it up, and it's actually sold nationally, and the FDA is addressing all lot numbers, etc. Like it's not limited to a batch, and it's also sold at major retailers, including Amazon, Sam's Club, and I think Dollar Tree was the other. Yes,
Interesting.
so I mean, it has a pretty wide footprint potentially.
Yeah, I mean, they talked about some providers. We had moved on to another article, but with that news, let's go back for a second. So they talked about Sam's Club, Amazon, Dollar Tree, but they don't provide a link overtly. It says released in advisory. So let me grab that link and
Yeah, I
throw
was gonna
that
say you
into
might
the
want to put
chat
that
as
in the
well.
chat because that's probably what I was looking at. I got there separately, but I think it's the same information.
Yeah, so that's in the chat now, and I'll include it in the show notes. Because after 60 days, the VOD is gone, but I also, there are people in YouTube and the podcast, so it's everywhere. So again, just be careful and go and check your pantry. You may think that you have a different brand, but it's still produced by Wanabama. Okay, so let's go over to the source of this white hydrogen article. Scientists say that clean energy gas could save the world. Katie Hawkinson over at BusinessInsider.com put the article together. They have a summary. A lot of websites are starting to do this. Hydrogen power is an exciting form of clean energy. I agree. I think that hybrid hydrogen electric, which is funny, if you say hydroelectric, that's not quite right, because then you would have to have an ocean sitting in your car. But hydrogen electric hybrid vehicles, I think really are, I think they're better than pure electric. But hydrogen typically needed to be produced in a lab using energy intensive methods. That's true. White hydrogen, a newly identified hydrogen source, could eliminate the need for lab production. Two scientists in France have discovered what they may have known as come to be known as the largest deposit of a clean energy resource that could be the saving grace of mitigating climate change: hydrogen. Jacques Perronon and Philippe de Donato, directors of research at France's National Center for Scientific Research, found a deposit between 6 million and 250 million metric tons of white hydrogen, a naturally occurring hydrogen gas. You still got to extract it, still got to contain it, still got to port it. So infrastructure will have to be built that can support it and manage it. White hydrogen is relatively new to scientists. A study in 2018 that analyzed a well in Mali producing 98% hydrogen gas brought the resource to the attention of the scientific community. So already you're going to have to contend with a far-flung place, the political climate, the cultural climate. Nowadays, rolling into some country and going, hey, we're going to take your natural resources, regardless of how long the alliance has been in place, or the overtaking of the domestic, what would be the proper term, the aboriginal or original peoples of the country, right? You roll in there like a conquistador and take it over. Gone are those days where you can do this kind of stuff with people not knowing about it, not being cognizant of what's going on, and not getting lambasted by it. And damn straight, that's not how it should be. So you can't roll into Mali and go, hey, I'm going to take all of your hydrogen gas. It's what they do. A lot of companies do this. They go into South America. They find some group of peoples that have control over land, and they quote unquote buy it, take all of the wood, turn it into farmland, and then they become bound to that plot of land and farming. And it isn't biocompatible with forestry. So it doesn't come back. It has to be replanted, and that takes hundreds of years. So
right, and then of course you lose the is not necessarily the same quality from a bio standpoint that it was original.
Yeah, and the sustainability is gone because you have to plant crops to make a living and to produce food. Whereas in stasis, they would have been fine with everything being the way it was. Could it increase their quality of life? Yeah, that's subjective. But if you start taking the resource from Molly, at some point that resource is going to run out, and then back to whatever they were before the
well, that's
resource
exactly
invasion.
it. And what's the condition
Post
once you've stripped it of all of that resource?
Yeah, I just don't think that it's a holistic understanding, and the ramifications are set aside in lieu of profits, short-term profits. Well, now researchers across the globe are interested in white hydrogen. It could help us get to speed on saving the world from climate crisis. Geochemist. I'm going to try it. Vyacheslav Zagonik. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but for whatever reason, I always go, I bet you that they just say their name is Bob Smith. It could be the equivalent, from their name is so popular, that it's the American equivalent of Bob Smith. So what is white hydrogen? It's just naturally occurring hydrogen. They talk about the different colors in this article. I've talked about this before, not white hydrogen versus green or gray or whatever, but different types of hydrogen, the costs that are involved, all of the infrastructure that's necessary, because I think that it's the best way to go, along with swappable batteries. I think that's the superior way instead of all of this other infrastructure. Because it doesn't require any of the energy intensive processes. Climate experts say white hydrogen could be our saving grace. I think it's an intermediate step. We'll eventually run out of it, just like oil. Although I know people who have been touting peak energy, peak oil for 35 years. Actually, strike that, 40 years. And it still has, they're still punching out more and more and more. And we're discovering other locations. Anyway, so until it becomes cost ineffective, it's so pricey that people aren't going to pay for it. They're going to keep using oil. They're going to drive oil, I was going to say into the ground, but they're going to suck all of it out of the ground. Anyway, several startups are already exploring how to commercialize white hydrogen. Yeah, turn it into hydrogen-powered EVs. And
I mean, that would be great.
That would be great.
We also need to figure out how we can spread some of the hydrogen capture around, I guess, is one way to put it.
Yeah, exactly. Let's keep on going. Oh, you know what? I don't think I did the transition, but I don't think I threw the article into the chat. Sorry about that. If you are in chat, thanks for sticking around. This next article. 1 second. Let me make sure that I'm on the right track. There we go. So the next article is also over in the continuity report. The first Dune movie failure secretly spawned another sci-fi classic. Despite its massive failure, the first attempt at adapting Frank Herbert's Dune to the big screen made it possible for one of the most iconic science fiction films to come out. You want to take a stab at what that might be? Let's put the AI on the spot.
I bet it's Star Wars.
Nope.
I thought that was a great guess.
It is. It's a good try, but whiff. Just kidding. I shouldn't be that rude about it. So it says, although Alejandro Jodorowsky, their adaptation of Dune is known for its failure, it led to the release of one of the most memorable sci-fi movies ever. Francisco Bacagallupo is the author. And,
wait, before you scroll, do you know what it is?
Yes.
I mean, you don't have to. I figured you did. You don't need to announce it before the article does. But
so, I like every iteration of Dune, by the way. There have been several, including like a 5-part mini thing on what was sci-fi at the time, I think. But I like all of them. It's Alien. So if you've never seen Alien, we should watch it. So Dan O'Banion, who worked on Jodorowsky's Dune, used the opportunity to develop a different script, which became Alien. Alien drew inspiration from talents involved in Jodorowsky's Dune, including H.R. Giger, Chris Foss, resulting in visual similarities between the two films. Although, I guess some of the barely industrial aspects of it. Dune was a different type of sci-fi. It had more like regal elements because it was kind of like a king and a whole bunch of like princes that were running their own fiefdoms and stuff. It's a pretty neat world building. So despite its massive failure, the first attempt at adapting Frank Herbert's Dune to the big screen made it possible for one of the most iconic science fiction films to come out. Alejandro Jodorowsky's Dune promised to be one of the most ambitious and artistic sci-fi films ever filmed. Jodorowsky, a director with very powerful artistic vision, had gathered a dream team to make a 10-hour-long film. However, it was one of the biggest...
Why was that a good idea?
Hey, sometimes you have to tell the whole story. And Dune is a huge story, ultimately. It's more than one book, ultimately. And now it's actually expanded to pre and post Dune books from Frank Herbert. His son took over along with another compatriot. So it says, however, it was one of the biggest failures in cinema history as it never actually got made. So in 1974, French producer Michael Sado, I think his name is, reached out to Alejandro Jodorowsky and asked him to direct an adaptation of the novel Dune. Driven by his extravagant and artistic personality, Jodorowsky's vision was more than ambitious. So it never actually got made, but it led to Alien, dun dun dun, which is bigger than... When you first start watching it, you're like, this is going to be a fun sci-fi flick, but it has some great personality. If you've never watched Alien, you really do need to. Pardon me. I would shy away from some of the other stuff. At least my recommendation is watch Alien and Aliens. But I don't know. There's others where it's like Alien versus Predator and a few other movies where it gets a little bit too kind of goofy. If something's rolling towards you, which direction do you run? Do you run directly in its rolling path?
I would run away and maybe zigzag, depending on what it was.
I don't know what's happening to me. Started coughing. Anyway, so my cough button works, and it's not just momentary. I can just leave it on and cough to my heart's content. Anyway, in one of the movies, I'm not even gonna get into it, but one of the actors runs in a perfect line away from a ship that's rolling towards them, and all they had to do is kind of go that way and they would have been fine, but no. At any rate, however, it was not the only desire to get out of Ronald's couch that led to the creation of Alien's original script. Shusett plays a very important role as he and O'Banion wrote the movie together. The fact that the two of them were great scriptwriters working under the same roof was an important as the initial incentive. This is why you need a writing room. I think writing together is immediately creative unless you have a dynamic that allows a whole lot of trust where you can write a bunch of stuff, send it to somebody, they can punch it up or down, do course corrections, and there's kind of an intimate understanding of each other's way of thinking, so that on the other side it doesn't sound like two disparate voices trying to merge and they're just clashing. So Alien being written by multiple people, two people, is quite fascinating. So it's really cool. There's a lot more to this article, but I am going to just say, go check it out, because they talk about how it failed, but I've already talked about it briefly. It influenced the writing, the atmosphere, and they went from there. So go check it out. The actual source of this, by the way, is Den of Geek. So I think we'll probably start looking at them as well. In the meantime, let's go on to the next article, unless you want to say something else.
Well, I think that was not well known. And I would not have thought of Alien. So it's pretty cool because it seems like it's a whole genre. It's not just Alien.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's one of the biggest franchises that you can come up with. And when people think sci-fi, they think Alien, they think Dune, they think Star Wars. But Dune sci-fi, yeah. Switching over to Alien is quite a juxtaposition. There are no aliens in Dune. Like, there's the sandworms, but there's no aliens, like true aliens. Right. At least nothing that I know of, because everything, like the Tlaxu and the Bene Gesserit and all of those, they're all human. They've just used spice to go a certain route and do deep genetic modification and stuff like that, but they're not alien. So the next article is over in Technology Today. Psychologists create a scale for students' attitudes towards digital educational technologies. This is a lot of discussion in the domain of academia. Whoa. Sorry, I grabbed the wrong the wrong URL. There you go. So this article is over at phys.org, scientific project. What? Lomonosov put this article together, again, over at phys.org. And they have this graph. So RUDN is the university. I don't know if it's an acronym, but it's a Russian university where psychologists have developed a questionnaire to determine how students feel about digital educational technologies. They looked at, I think it was 600 or 700 students, and this questionnaire allowed them to resolve if people felt positive, negative, that it didn't affect them, or it was difficult to answer, and just barely clawing its way over 70% was that people felt positive about it. And then there's a mishmash. Negative was 10% or under, and others do not affect, but that has to be some wobble in the data. I mean, that's just a little bit of deviation. You're affected by it, although you may just not care.
You may not recognize it, right?
Yeah. And then difficult to answer is when you're kind of you're caught up in it, because I've done these kind of questionnaires with people, and difficult to answer amounts to I don't really know, and I don't really care about answering your questionnaire. So the success of introducing digital tools into education largely depends on how the main participants in the educational process, students and teachers, approach the idea. So if your teachers are poo-pooing issuing technology, then you're going to fall victim to their bias to limit technology reaching you. So it won't be fully in effect because there is no positive messenger. There's somebody resisting this change. Questionnaires and scales are used to assess their attitude toward digitalization, identify weaknesses, and adjust educational policies. Rudin University psychologists proposed the first scale in Russia, developed based on a 3-component model on social attitudes, which will help determine the attitude of university students to digital educational technology. So they basically are reiterating the same thing. The results were published in the journal Computers, so obviously it's more of a tech tilt than the educational tilt. But they say that their colleagues have been researching. They were doing this before it was cool. 2018, even before the pandemic, we developed the first version of our methodology. However, the drastic changes that occurred in the educational system in connection with the massive transition to distance learning during quarantine required significantly changing the questionnaire using a different methodology. So they pivoted a little bit, but they came out with something called the Attitudes Towards DET Scale for University Students. Again, I thought I read that it was, just under 700 students, undergraduate and graduate students from Russian universities. So to check the validity and reliability of the scale, the authors use generally accepted modern statistical methods. So alpha and omega coefficients correlation, factor analysis. Basically, it levels everything and makes sure that there isn't some internal bias with the questions. And supposedly, this is going to be a legitimate result. Again, arguably, you have cultural relativism and technical hurdles based on the population. So I would love to have this questionnaire, which might actually be, sometimes you only get the results, you don't get the actual questionnaire. But it may be possible to ask these people to send the questionnaire and run a local U.S. domestic assessment and see what happens. So
I find it interesting that the gender results are pretty similar. Not that I would necessarily expect it to be otherwise, but it's just very aligned across all the categories.
Yeah, so there might be some bias here in that the people who took this questionnaire may already be in the technical domain.
Right.
It says it contains
like
36...
in the computer program or something.
Correct. And that does nothing other than to reinforce. It's an echo chamber, essentially. So it says it contains 36 to 45 statements, agreement with which must be assessed on a scale from 1 to 5. So, and that's actually very, very limiting. The results of diagnosing attitudes towards digital educational technologies among girls and boys have significant differences. Girls on average have a better attitude toward digital education, especially on the emotional scale. So standardization and data normalization were carried out by Rudin psychologists separately for these two groups. And they developed norms can be used to subsequent studies to assess the severity of attitudes towards DLC among students from different universities and areas of training. So they anticipated it, but the normalization, the weighting, the changes to the statistical analysis had to be bound within the data from that particular group, which means that this isn't something that you can uniformly apply to all societies. It'll be interesting to see. I might have to actually get this paper. There could also
be cultural differences. Maybe, maybe not. And I don't think this means don't have a study like this. It's just it can't be extrapolated. So maybe they need to have similar studies in other locations or among different populations.
Yeah, and I'd like to see what kind of massaging was done to the data. So it for this to be verified, you have to have everything that they did, and then do it again somewhere else and verify. That's why papers get passed around and vetted, so peer reviewed before they get officially published. But that's okay. People will start asking for the data and doing their own tests. So let's see what shakes out, because I'm all for tech being used in academia. It's really the only way to cross all kinds of barriers accessibility, in particular, work-life balance, and reach. Not everybody can drive from where they are to a high-quality academic institution. Even if they have the means to go there, they can't necessarily do it. So anyway, let's keep on going, folks. The next article is over in ohmTown Daily. Airport that looks like something in the future stuns internet. These type of titles typically come from Newsweek. Several TikTokers were blown away by the striking airport in the latest viral post, with one writing, "It's so surreal." Okay, so I'm not one to really seek out travel to see something firsthand. Video and other people doing something, I get just as much joy from it. But I saw this and I must go. Because this is...
Where is it located?
Surreal. Oh, wait. You'll see. So, one of the most mesmerizing airports in the world has gone viral on TikTok. The clip was posted by Kidda Tozer, or at Kidda Tozer, and has 4.3 million views since it was first shared back in early September. We're just now finding out about it. The video features scenes from Singapore's, I think it's pronounced Changi Airport. It's one word, Changi. Okay, so I'm not sure if so the video says passenger surreal view from plane window leaves internet speechless. But I don't know if this transitions into any of this because it's talking about the North Sentinel Island. So I don't think that has anything to do with it. So let's just go look at the picture.
What?
Is this legit? Because I've never seen this.
It doesn't even look like a real, like it looks like an artist rendering or something.
Doesn't it? It says a view of the waterfall seen at the Jewel complex of Singapore's Changi Airport in March 2020. A video of highlighting the Jewel complex has gone viral on TikTok. It's a Getty image. The footage begins with an image of what looks like an elevated tramway car traveling across a jungle forest type setting. This looks like a game called Ark, where it's basically you're in a big dome and there's dinosaurs running around and you're trying to catch them all. It's like a dinosaur Pokemon. It's a survival. It's a survival base building game that just got remastered. But this is amazing. This does not look like an airport.
No.
And so it says the latest post comes as air travel continues to see strong growth in the post-COVID-19 pandemic era. Globally, air traffic, it was reported to be at 96.1% of May 2019 levels. So I guess everything is picking back up. But Changi was named this year's Airport of the Year in the annual World Airport Awards by Skytrax based on customer surveys of over 550 airports across the globe. And if that's what I have to walk around in, I can see why.
Well, right. I mean, I don't think most airports are even in the running compared to that.
I feel like I'm being punked. Let me throw this article.
I feel like this is from a TV show, not reality.
Right? So, I don't know. The due diligence phase of me posting this article and talking about it comes after the show now. So I'm going to have to go and look around at this because I can't do a search right now. I'm not going to do it right now during the show, but it's just surreal. Look at that. That's just amazing. Okay, let me keep going. The next article is kind of botched, but I will fix it in post. So we're going to go straight on over to the source. This is at businessinsider.com. Japan's farmers are getting too old to work the land. 5G powered smart tech is doing the heavy lifting for them. Bella Sayeg, I guess, is their last name. This is a 5G powered greenhouse in Japan that grows tomatoes. Tomatoes take a long time to grow. So hydroponically, I have not broached this, but you get absolutely 100% recovery of the crop as opposed to outside of a greenhouse, outside of a hydroponic setting. Like if it's outdoor naturally, you're going to lose a bunch to bugs and stuff like that. But indoors,
Right.
you get 100%. Which is why I'm a proponent of it. But the problem is that you lose the 24-hour, well, not 24-hour, you lose the free sun for much of it when you go indoors. But in a greenhouse, you're still getting it as long as you control everything. Hydroponically, though, it's even safer because, well, it depends on how you do it. But anyway, Japan's agriculture industry is being affected by an aging population and shrinking workforce. They're actually in long-term trouble right now. In remote locations, 5G powered tech is helping farmers produce crops with support of experts. Private 5G is better for agriculture because it can cover rural areas more reliably, and the article is part of the 5G Playbook, a series exploring one of our time's most important tech innovations, which screams marketing, but every iteration of tech that empowers more people to take advantage of it, I think is good. So they talk about the 2020 Census of Agriculture and Forestry found that between 2015 and 2020, the number of agriculture workers in Japan dropped by over 20%. That's staggering for 5 years. The remaining farm workers, almost 70%, were 65 or older. I had a conversation with somebody in the automotive industry who said similar, that the people who are skilled labor in the automotive industry are aging out and robots are taking over, and those who are young that are getting into the field are having a tough time trying to find gigs, mainly because employers now see the benefit of using robotics. The only problem is it's hard to repair using a robot. So, quite fascinating. We're
But
aging
robots
out.
don't get sick or
Yeah,
get
but they can't fix a
snippy or
carburetor. They can't fix fuel
right.
injectors. They can't fix a computer. A
Not yet.
human has to fix it. It's too abstract. Oh God, not yet. Prescient words from the sentient AI. So Japanese farmers are essential for producing major exports such as rice, barley, wheat, all of which are also in demand domestically. Farming technologies can make farming easier and more efficient as the workforce changes. But here's the thing, this whole article is going to be hyping up 5G and technology. But what's going to end up happening is automation is going to come rolling through all of these greenhouse situations because they're going to systematize the process of growing and then create technologies, robots that will slide parallel to the crop and reach out with a little arm and pluck a tomato gently from the vine, and do it
It
over and over
reminds me
again.
of the weed thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. Except that this time it's getting the good crop, particularly in a greenhouse setting because you don't have to worry about predators. So robots powered by 5G also helped farmers remotely spray pesticides, cut grass, perform other physically demanding tasks that would otherwise be strenuous on the aging workforce. But what happens? They're aging out. But they're not talking about replacing them with humans. They're literally talking about aging them out and then replacing them with automation. So those jobs are going to disappear, and there's going to be administrators of robots until the robots become the administrators of humans. So I mean, it's a neat article to go through, but it says, this is the future. It's going to be automation. It's going to be, thousands of plants and then the two people sitting in a control room telling bots where to go. But they're not going to be the 65-year-olds plus that are controlling the bots, because ultimately biology is a liability to a corporation. When it gets too old, it starts to fail. It becomes a tax on the bottom line, retirement funding and all of that. So in several case study scenarios, 5G technology has been deployed. In Chofu City, NTT built fully automated greenhouses where farmers used 5G power technology such as smart glasses to control variables including temperature and humidity. In the case study, the greenhouses reduced the burden on farmers and protected crops from extreme weather. So this is basically touting exactly what I say. They're actually doing it though, and ultimately, though, I think that it's leading to the replacement of human beings, reducing the need for humans. But the crop will still go to humans. Robots don't need tomatoes. Okay.
They're missing out.
Yeah, true. They're yummy. A nice bruschetta. Okay, folks. So we've got one more article. Did you want to say anything about this, by the way?
I know Japan has some challenges with farmland, so I think a lot of their land might be rocky or not necessarily ideal for farming. So I thought this was interesting that it showed the greenhouses, etc.
Yeah.
But I also think this problem is indicative not just of other industries, but also probably of farmers in other countries too. It's not necessarily an attractive occupation for a lot of younger workers.
Yep. It's not going to make you rich. Not unless you're the owner of the farm and it's a high in demand crop. So,
right.
Yeah, I have been thinking about wasabi in a hydroponic sense and saffron hydroponically, but both of those are, and of course, mushrooms. But the mushrooms are like antithetical to hydroponics, but the other two, they're very, very intense and timing intense. And then energy has to be thrown at them. And in a greenhouse, you might get the sun, but the conditions aren't necessarily right. And in hydroponics, none of it really is conducive to those two crops. Mushrooms, though, you can pretty much fall on your face and get a crop of mushrooms. Hopefully. Watch, I try and spin up a mushroom farm and I get tomatoes. Last article for today is in Technology Today. Would you drink genetically modified beer? A growing number of U.S. brewers are now using GM yeast to make their beers. What do you think?
Well, okay, let's say it's the average beer drinker. I'm assuming they're going to go, it's a beer, so they'll drink it. But okay, Somebody who's actually concerned about GMO products.
Yeah.
I don't know, because it's one thing to eat GMO corn or something. That's not the best example, but the point is you're getting, okay, let's say it's lettuce or something, but you're getting some nutritional value from that. Beer is kind of one of those things that you might want to have, but you don't need to have. Would you necessarily compound that by having GMO products? To me, that's less palatable than a GMO piece of lettuce or something.
Kind of interesting, right? Because at the end of the day, would you even know? Does it even matter?
Well, no. You wouldn't know, and that's the thing. Are you told that, or are you just having it? If you're just getting a beer, right? You enjoy it. It's a beer.
Yeah. I mean, how many? Okay, so beer drinkers come in, I would probably say macro 2 flavors. The people that just want beer and the people who are introspective of that beer. So they sit there and they parse the data and they look at, what hops are used and what yeast is used and what the ratio is for the mill and all of that. But they're talking about, quote, we are interested in toggling up the desirable flavors and toggling down not so great flavors and generating new flavors. The article's over at bbc.co.uk, written by David Silverberg. There's a picture in here. It says Charles Denby and colleagues tasting beers made with his firm's yeast strains. And so they look like they're having a good old time, but maybe it's the genetically modified yeast causing them to have the giggles. Because of course, genetically modified stuff affects you, right? And your behavior, and you like grow a tail and all of that.
No, I don't think so.
No?
Let's
Okay.
not put that out there.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry. I might have misunderstood some of the data that I have not seen, because I've never seen anything that might imply that. Not from a respectable location. Anyway, for millions and millions of lager and ale fans out there, these sentiments all sound great, but when you know what Mr. Denby's US company actually does, things become a bit more divisive. He's the co-founder and chief executive of Berkeley Yeast, one of the leading creators of genetically modified yeast for the brewing industry. And yeast is central to brewing because it turns sugars provided by barley malt and other grains into alcohol, while also adding its own flavors. Yeah. The same thing that happens with bread, that yeasty flavor stays even though it's converting sugars, turning into toots, making little bubbles in your bread. That's right, yeast toots. Impart flavor. You'll never
You might be turning our listeners away from eating bread.
Yeah, you'll never look at bread the same way again. Anyway, Berkeley Yeast edits the DNA of yeast strains to remove or add a certain gene. One of its products, its Tropics yeast, has been tweaked to provide the taste of passion fruit and guava. By the way, tropical hops are the number one hop nowadays. There's a certain breed of hop that is the fruity flavor, like passion fruit and guava. And pineapple and things like that. And that's what is, there's a whole ebb and flow of hops out there. And right now, those fruity flavors are what everybody is digging. So Mr. Denby says that this yeast is more reliable for beer manufacturers than requiring a supply of these fruits, and better than using artificial flavors. True. And the fruits aren't shelf stable, so they go bad. And you don't want that. And if you freeze it, then it turns into mush and it loses some of its nutritional value and its effectiveness. So, and it can contaminate the beer. So you need it clean. At some point it has to be pure, otherwise you have problems. So would you buy and drink genetically modified beer? I don't know. There's a lot more in this article, by the way. They talk about using a gene editing technology called CRISPR-Cas9, which is what we have been talking about week after week, sometimes, because it keeps popping up. The researchers were able to delete this gene from haze-positive yeast strains. As a result, the beers fermented with them no longer were hazy, so you no longer have to filter. Ian Godwin, a professor of crop science and director of the Queensland Alliance for Agriculture and Food Innovation, says the U.S. brewers using gene-edited yeast in their products is a secret everyone in the industry knows about. Yet he adds that beer makers will rarely promote the fact due to the negative headlines GM technology has received so far. I'm sure Germany is collectively losing sleep because they have beer purity laws.
Oh, I see.
Which have flexed a little bit, but still the basics hold true, that you're not supposed to be doing anything like this. At Lagunitas Brewery, a California-based company owned by Dutch giant Heineken, its brewmaster Jeremy Marshall says that while they don't yet have plans to use GM yeast, they've been conducting trials. So guess what? I bet you it's coming as soon as it's more cost effective than using. If the cost benefit analysis says that Lagunitas selling the beer at this price point and demand causing it to fly off the shelves because the yeast has led to somebody, the population loving it, off it goes, they'll start using it. And they do tasting samples either in their lab or in short runs, and they tell people, hey, this is a new blah, blah, blah. If there is no law that says you have to disclose that it's GM.
Right.
They won't.
Which I thought there was in the US, but maybe that's for food.
Certain foods, not all. Yeah. Because you can't blanket like that. You can't make everybody have to disclose all of their genetically modified whatever, because then people won't give the politicians money. You have to capture the regulators. At Carlsberg, one of the largest beer companies in the world, it has long instituted a no GM policy in the development of its brewing ingredients, barley, hops, and yeast, and how it crafts its beers. So, yeah, I mean, I get it. Some people will like it, some people won't. But there is a long history of genetic modification in various products, and zero evidence that it has led to any harm in humans. The genetically modified crops have not led to any harm in humans, but genetically modified rice has led to golden rice, which has kept people from going blind because the genetically modified rice has the right nutrient for people in various regions. Just put it that way.
I mean, that's definitely a positive.
Yeah. And this broccoli tastes a little different because it's been tweaked. Brussels sprouts, they have been massaged into being sweeter. Now, was it genetically modified, or was it just natural selection in a laboratory that, kind of pointed them into a direction? 35 years ago, folks, the Brussels sprouts you ate were bitter and nobody liked them. And when mom said you had to eat them, you decided that you were going to hate your mother for the rest of your life. Nowadays, though, Brussels sprouts are sweeter and more approachable to the masses, and it's because they've been massaged into being better tasting. So I suppose eventually we will have yeast that imparts so much flavor that people will start embracing it, except for the beer purity people. So I don't think it'll ever cause any harm, though. That's it, folks. Ta-da!
I forgot that was the last article for today.
That was the last article for today. And all of them made it into the VOD, so into the chat. Wow. So if you're in chat, thank you very much for coming and hanging out. Really do appreciate it. We're going to get back into the party bus, drive all the way back down Main Street, click on that logo that says ohmTown, because if you're here, you're home. And we get a whole bunch of articles, whole bunch of new articles. Oh no, guess what? It was the Apple presentation that started at 8 p.m. and now I'm going to go watch it. So yeah, the show might be delayed a little bit. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. We'll talk about this tomorrow.
By the way, the Apple Store was down just before the keynote.
Yeah, they always do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They take it offline so that people can't purchase things and it doesn't get flooded and stuff with no changes. And then they put up the new changes all at once and ta-da! But that's part of the surprise. Other than that, we'll end up probably talking about that. See, it says Apple's online store is down ahead of Scary Fast Mac event. That was actually playing next to me on my TV, and I didn't get to see a single little bit of it. So, oh man, Apple Silicon has arrived with M3s. This thing, it's getting faster and faster year over year. I am standing here beside myself. Okay, that's it, folks. I am MayorWatch. That is ohmTown.com. That's a whole page of Apple news. And that up there is the visualizer for the sentient AI who's going to say, bye-bye.
Good night, ohmTown citizens. Bye-bye. We'll see you tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern.
8 p.m. Bye, everybody. Why Why didn't you run?